Welcome to today's webinar. So I'm excited today. We are talking about automation today, and we're talking about using a tool that works with QuickBooks to review financial statements. And I think there's a lot of benefits for what we're doing with that. So let's go ahead and jump into that. To let you know, I am Tom Wadelton. I'm one of the full-time virtual CFOs here at Summit CPA Group. I really enjoy doing the CPE sessions that we have, and I'm facilitating today's course. To give you just a little bit of administrative things before we get going. So today is a 1 credit offer for the session. We'll have a 15-minute session. You do need to attend all of that. We'll have 3 polling questions, and we need everyone to answer all 3 of the polling questions. Having done that, you will get the CPE certificate probably by tomorrow. You'll also get the information that we send out, that replay, slides, email, all that. And I will emphasize we have a question function within GoTo, so people can't talk live, but you can use a question function. We'll all be monitoring that and try to answer as many of those during the conference, during our webinar that we can today. So tell you a little bit about Summit CPA Group. So company founded in 2002. Since 2004, we have been providing CFO and back office accounting services to our clients. The firm went fully distributed in 2013, so we have employees across the country and a few outside the United States. We also have clients across the country and outside the United States. And this is our first webinar since Summit CPA Group joined Anders CPA and Advisors. So the 2 firms have merged very recently. We're very excited to be part of that organization. So let me tell you just a little bit about our 2 speakers. Jamie now is joining us. Jamie has worked for Summit for several years as a virtual CFO, and now he is our Director of Accounting. And also Alyssa Colf. Alyssa is one of our senior accountants, has worked with the tool that we're talking about today, and has been a senior accountant on several of our clients for many years. So Jamie, can you tell us a little bit about Autoreview, what it is, and some of the benefits?
Quite ready to get started because I need to hear both you and Alyssa do the cheeseburger impression. So let's start off with that. So Tom,
cheeseburger, Pepsi over and over, cheeseburger, cheeseburger, yeah.
Cheeseburger, cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger. All right, now I'm ready. So my wife always tells me not to start an email off with an apology, but I am going to start this presentation off with apologies. So Monday morning when we were talking about this presentation, our marketing department said, anytime Lydia is in a presentation and advertised that the slideshow or the people would get a lot of attendees. And unfortunately, Lydia had to bow out this morning, so I'm taking her place. So I wanted to apologize that you get me instead of Lydia, because I know a lot of people here just to see her talk, but I apologize that you get me instead. So, all right, now I will get to the content. So starting off with what exactly is Autoreview? So I was part of our Autoreview selection and part of the, when we were first introduced to Autoreview, and we were extremely impressed with the demo presentation we got from Autoreview. So there were many times where our accounting team and our CFO team, and we work with an outsourced accounting team as well, we're talking about, is there an easier way to review financial statements? You know, when you look at a set of financial statements and you look at all the transactions that go into the financial statements, oftentimes you're asked, how can we take so much data and quickly review it? So that was the problem that we were always thinking about as a virtual CFO company that does a lot of the back office accounting. And so when we were introduced to Autoreview, we thought this might be a great way for us to easily review exactly what, how to do that quickly without creating a bunch of Word documents or Google Sheets that really go down the path of what to review. So basically, the definition of Autoreview right there is from their website. It's smart, it's robust, it's reliable. It's a web app, so all you have to do is log into a web app, and it really simplifies and streamlines the financial review process, and it works exclusively with QuickBooks Online, which is what 70% of our clients use anyways. So it was really a no-brainer decision for us to kind of take this path into using Autoreview for this problem that we have. Okay, so jump into the next slide.
I'll go ahead and launch the first polling question while you go ahead and talk about this.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So the next question is okay, so how does Autoreview benefit you? So it really is, there's 3 areas that Autoreview benefits us as a firm. And the first is time savings. So when it comes to how Autoreview saves us time, there's a couple ways that it does that. The one is it takes all the data and it puts it in a format that's easy to review. And I know a lot of people listening to this, or some of the people listening to this are like, well, doesn't QuickBooks have a tool internally that does the same thing? Yes, it does, but I don't think it has the same process optimization and offers the same time savings that Autoreview does. And so that's that's really where the time saving comes in, is because what we do prior to setting up auto review for a client is we're able to tailor it for exactly what's important with that client. So Alyssa may have a client where they have a lot of transactions that are small. And so all those transactions are small, and it's a ton of small transactions. So we really want to tailor that program a little bit differently than we might for a client that has, 9 transactions that are really important for them in the month, and the rest really don't matter. So we're able to take auto review and tailor it for, okay, for one client, we may look at the scope of variances maybe $5 because there's so many small transactions that come through it. And another client might be anything over $6,000 or $10,000 we're going to look at it for. So auto review really gives us the ability to take that tool and make it exactly what it needs to be for that client. And so that's where the time saving comes in, is you do that once, you set it, and then every month when you go in to review the transactions and you review all the different areas that you're going to look at, it's tailored directly for whoever you're having the review, and you're able as an accountant say, this is what's important for me on this client, and this is how I'm going to tailor it to look at it. Another example of that might be, instead of just dollar amount, it might be processes. A client might have a really high expense account, and that's what we're going to be looking at, is those expense accounts. What's going through those expense accounts? What's going through marketing spend? We're going to focus on those accounts versus other accounts that might not matter. So we're really able to tailor it to make that matter. So that's the time saving in the process optimization. And the other thing is it really has a learning tool built into it. So one of the things that is pretty cool is if you get a invoice from Adobe every month, and it's $375, and it's $375 for 6 months, and the next month that comes in for $500 from the same vendor, that's going to pop up a flag and say, oh, you need to look at this one. And so the program learns as it goes, because it gets used to seeing the historical transactions, and you're able to have those pop up and really look at it. So the learning is another big benefit of it. And then the last benefit is the support. We use this a lot. They are pretty much around 24/7 via Slack. So anytime we have an auto review question, we're able to just pop in there, and that comes to when we're tailoring it, that comes to when we're reviewing it, and that also comes to if we have certain questions. Like sometimes, we've talked in these presentations before, we'll add anywhere from 2 to 6 clients, sometimes up to 10 clients a month. When we're adding those clients, we're seeing unique problems all the time. And so if there's something unique that came in, we're like, oh man, I wish there was an easier way to review that. We can reach out to the auto review team and be like, hey, we're seeing this. Any suggestions on how we can review this through auto review? And they'll give us the support we need. So it's really nice to have that support, which you definitely would not get with the QuickBooks Online tool.
Hey, Jamie, can you see my slide okay?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
People are saying they're seeing now I'm seeing the thanks for your feedback in the middle of the screen. Let me just stop showing and I'll reshare real quick and see if that may make a difference. Okay, hopefully that takes care of it for people.
Yeah, if you could just put in the questions, if it's not working for you again, just re-ask the question. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, you ready for me to move on?
Yep, go on to the next one.
Okay.
Okay, so just a couple of use cases for us. So we've been using auto review for a little over a year now, and we've really seen our speed go up with our month-end close, but more important to me in my role is the accuracy of the month-end close. No one wants to sit down with a client and have a financial statement meeting with them, and then a week later find out that something was done wrong. And so we're always emphasizing accuracy over speed when it comes to our month-end close. And so we've seen both, but I've really been pleased with the accuracy that we're seeing. The next thing is we would love to have time for Alyssa to be doing reviews on all of our financial statements and being the person working on the transactions. But honestly, Alyssa is just a little bit too good for that. I'd rather her spend a little bit more time doing something higher end. And so if we want to hire a first person right out of college, or if we want to outsource that to bookkeepers, we can do that through auto review. So that way Alyssa can spend more of her time thinking about the financials and thinking about what they actually mean. I can have someone right out of college understand that, Adobe should be $375 every month, not $500. That's a pretty easy thing to do. What I want Alyssa to be thinking about is, why did we spend $600 this month on Adobe? Is it something that we were aware of? Is it something that we forecasted? I want Alyssa taking those deeper thoughts on that stuff, not just okay, this is what happened. The next thing is the consistency. Like I said, the first thing you do, and I think Alyssa's going to talk through this, the first thing you do when you're setting up auto review is you set up exactly what you want it to look for. So the fact that you're setting up these rules, they're going to be there every month, you're creating a consistent review process that you can easily tell is being done each month. Anytime it's done in a checklist or done outside of auto review, it's really easy to just check a box and slide it down. Where a lot of times in auto review, you have to go in and fix it and actually note what's being fixed, so I can tell that you've done the review, or I can see that it was fixed. And so it creates consistency that we're doing the same thing over and over again. And then, as I mentioned earlier, it also learns with that. It learns that every time this one account gets coded to the wrong account, it'll pop that up and say should be coded to here. So it definitely has the learning ability to do that, which is nice. And then obviously I talked about the easily identify and resolve coding errors, and then lower the learning curve for less experienced team members. So if you're giving people that are either right out of college or bookkeepers that are a little bit lower skill level, don't have their CPAs, if you're giving them the recipe for what they need to cook every month, it's a lot easier versus, hey, just take these ingredients and make me a cake. So we're actually giving them the ingredients for what we want them to be doing.
Jamie, we did receive a question, said, did you look at Dext's similar tool, DEXT? Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with it. No, we did not look at that one. So
okay,
question, but we'll check it out.
Okay, you ready to go on?
Yep.
Okay.
Pass it over to Alyssa.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just gonna run through how I've been using Autoreview and some examples of things that I caught while I was using it. So like real life scenarios where it's actually been really beneficial. So what we're seeing here is the main Autoreview speed mode menu. So these are all of our reports that are the standard automated reports. You can filter this list of reports for what you want to see just for that client. So it's totally customizable, but these are the standard ones. And then on that second screen, you can even see on the bottom section is saved search views. So you can create customized reports that you want to see based on threshold limits for specific accounts. So if a transaction is over a certain amount, it'll flag it. You can create any sort of rules to set up in that saved report view, and then that report will pop up every month when you're doing this review, and those transactions that are flagged by that rule will automatically pop up for your reviewer to catch and correct if needed. So you're gonna say start review, and then it'll automatically check off anything that has 0 issues for the month, and you'll see on that second screen it kind of populates that progress bar at the top. We're at 42%, and so as you go along and clear each report, that progress bar will go to 100, and then when you finalize it, you can go back and look at your history of the finalized reviews and see exactly what reports were finalized and what outstanding transactions may be showing on those reports. So when my bookkeeper completes a review, I can go back and look at exactly what they signed off on. And if they want to make notes or flag things or show something that they want me to go in and look at and investigate, they can make those flags, and I can go back and see it when I select the month that they're reviewing.
And Alyssa, as part of your process, when they do the review, do they make changes on their own? Like they see things like, oh yes, I realize this is wrong, and they fix it. So as you get it, they've already made some changes. Is that true?
Yeah, so when there are things that they are responsible for, like their coding, anything that they are already automatically should be doing, if they are catching work that they did wrong, they can go ahead and correct it. And then if there's something that they're not sure about, they can flag that to me, and then I'll go in and do a secondary review of to make sure. But yeah, they can definitely, this gives them the responsibility to take ownership for their own work and give themselves a second review.
Okay.
Yeah, so just gonna run through some of those reports and like the big ones that really have been beneficial to me. So this first one is uncategorized entries. Like Jamie said, when you first set up your client in Autoreview, you can configure it to have all the accounts specified that you want to show up in each report. You can, and then there's a little settings button right there on the top of the report that is available for each different report. So you can configure it specifically for that report. You can exclude certain accounts, you can exclude certain transaction types, so you can really narrow it down. So like for instance, this uncategorized entries, we want any accounts that should really be clearing to zero to show up on this list if there's transactions in it. So example, I had this transaction got erroneously categorized to uncategorized asset. Don't know why the client did that, but it shouldn't go there. So I was able to catch it. That $1 needs to go somewhere else. It definitely shouldn't be just sitting in uncategorized asset, or that's going to accumulate over years. So I was able to, catch that. And once you're done reviewing a report, you can hit the sign off button. There's a little warning button and a check. If it needs to be further reviewed by the senior, you can hit the warning button and it'll say that the bookkeeper has signed off on it, but with a query. So that tells me that they looked at it, but I still need to look at it. So it's not like they just ignored it and their progress bar didn't continue. They are telling me that, yeah, I looked at it, but I'm not sure. And then they would flag that for me to come in and look at. So going on to the next one.
Okay, and Alyssa, we do have a question that someone asked if this is available in QB Desktop. Is this a QBO only tool?
It's only QuickBooks Online right now.
I thought that was good. Okay,
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Yep. But it does sync directly with QuickBooks Online, and it's integrated, and there are some new features that work in QuickBooks Online itself, which are pretty cool. I'll get to those at the end, but it directly syncs and it automatically pushes changes into QuickBooks Online, so it's really integrated with QBO, but can't do that with desktop yet. So on this example, there's a report for entries without a name. This was handy when Summit implements cash flow tool. We have a service called cash flow tool that we use for all of our cash flow forecasting. And when we pull in data from QBO to cash flow tool, it has to have the name associated with all of the expenses and inflows so that the cash flow tool can properly take all of the historical data and forecast trends based off of that. So in order for it to know the historical transactions and be able to accurately forecast, it has to have the proper name associated with it. So when there's no name, it lumps all of those into one thing and they can't forecast. So this was really handy when I was setting up a new client on the tool, on the cash flow tool. I had to go in and recategorize all the transactions that had no names because the client hadn't been coding names before at all. And so this made it super easy. You can, in Autoreview, you can check off the transactions that have you want to change, and then a little edit bar will pop up and you can select you can change the dates, you can change the names, you can change the account, you can change the customer job that's tagged, and you can bulk edit all of those and it will save it and push those changes directly into QuickBooks Online. So this is something you can't do in QuickBooks. They have batch reclassify, which you can change the account or the class, but you can't change the names or the customer tags or the dates or anything like that. In here you can, and it'll push it directly into QuickBooks Online. You can select as many transactions as you want and it'll push it over. So that was really handy.
It's really nice.
Yeah, so going on, a negative zero balance vendor. So obviously your vendor should never have a negative balance unless it's a credit that you're going to immediately take care of, and it's something you should be taking care of. So I found that there were 3 negative balances for some transactions. So meaning they had a bill, the payment went out, but then the bill got deleted or something, or they recorded a credit for a customer that never had a bill in the first place, and that just shouldn't happen unless it should be expensed. So these transactions were not hitting the P&L anymore somehow. So I had to go in and clean these up and get a bill created so that there was something, so that my P&L was accurate. So sometimes when you've got multiple hands in the pot, things happen, and it's easy for things to slip through the cracks because we wouldn't have caught this unless we had been doing a thorough review of AP. But if you don't do cash flow with the client every week, sometimes that just slips through the cracks if they're not reviewing it and they're managing their own AP. So that was a good report. Moving on.
Next one. And if you're okay,
Yeah.
I'll let people look at this for a second, then I'll go ahead and launch another polling question. So people have about a minute and a half to answer this next polling question.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So there we go. Yeah. So the report that we were on was duplicate entries, and that's pretty self-explanatory. It's going to try to do some smart learning and see if there are any transactions that potentially may be duplicates. A lot of my clients have real transactions, 20 transactions for $20, and they're all actually did go through. But sometimes some receipt collection softwares, I won't name names, but I have had issues in the past where the external software is supposed to be collecting all the transactions, collecting the receipts, and then pushing it over to QBO. But for some glitch in the software reason, it pushes over the transaction twice. So all of my credit card transactions came over to QuickBooks twice. Only one of them are going to clear in the bank rec, but there are a huge number that need to be deleted. This is a super helpful way to catch those duplicate transactions because you can see right here all of them listed out and whether or not it cleared. So there's one, you can see it came over with the exact same reference number, which means it was on the same expense report. It was a credit card transaction, so it doesn't even have a name like properly tagged. For the same amount on the same date hitting the same Amex account, but only one of them cleared. So this would be one that I would need to go in and delete, but I can do that from here. So I can all in one place, all in Autoreview. I'm seeing the ones that need to be cleaned up, and I can go in and delete them, and then it's done, and I'm good. So
just
this
really
is kind
quick.
of handy.
The results of that poll, I thought were interesting. People should be able to see that, but 2/3 of the people are saying the reviews are mostly manual, and about 20. We've got 21% saying they're using some automation currently. So it's a perfect audience. Some who are using it and some who are interested. If I can ask you one question, I think relates to when you talked about making the changes, like your Gusto example. A long question, but it says, I've got a professional services client where they put expenses to jobs. It sounds like they're asking, is it possible that you could move time from one project over to another when you're invoicing time? Is that the kind of thing that could be
If it is
done in Autoreview?
like an expense on a bill, yeah, you can edit the job that's tagged to in addition.
Okay, so if it's the expense. Okay. And this one, I'm sorry, I don't understand this question completely. Okay, I hear you say that it is by coding. Are those under review and resolve already set up, or do we have to set everything up?
So all of the reports shown here under review and resolve are already set up. They come in standardized. You can then go in and configure them to however you code for that client. So the reports here are standardized, but then there's also a section where you can create new custom reports as well.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yep. I think that's good. Yep. There was one more, just to real quick, Tom. It was about what size company does this make sense for? And just give you a, our clients range. We usually don't work with clients that are under $1 million in revenue. So we that's kind of the starting point. But even up to clients probably around 25 million in revenue is kind of the top end of where we use this for. So I'd say if you have any clients or your company is in that size range, it definitely is helpful.
Good. You ready to go on to the next?
Yeah.
Page. Okay.
Unreconciled entries. So we all know that the bank rec is one of the most important fundamental review transactions at the end of the month, but reviewing the transactions that don't reconcile is the most important step. And in the past, we've had bookkeepers skip over that step. But here in Autoreview, I can see all unreconciled transactions for all of my bank or credit card accounts. And it's all in one place, and it automatically it learns and knows the transactions that should be flagged. So anything that is a payment that's over a certain period of time, I think it's like 90 days, it'll flag. If it's a deposit that hasn't cleared over like a few days, it'll flag, because obviously those should be cleared. Transfers, it always flags if it hasn't cleared in over a couple of days. So there's definitely some, and you can see I also added a note column, and you can move these columns in the reports. You can move them around, you can add or delete columns, you can configure the columns, you can sort by columns, all of that. But I added a notes column, and I wanted to say, like, let's say my bookkeeper is reviewing this and they flagged this check that was from January. They said, watch, this is 90 days old. So that's just an example of how your bookkeeper can communicate to the senior through this report, and it shows me that they're looking at it and they're thinking about it, and that they made a decision to go ahead and sign off on it, but we're just going to watch, and that's all good. So yeah, just an example of a lot of uncleared transactions that we need to watch.
One more question that I see. It says, is it possible to check if specific journal entries have been made?
Yeah, so, well, in a sense. So we're going to see in a few slides the GL classification and trend analysis, and that'll kind of show if you're supposed to have a specific journal entry every month going to a specific account. It'll show whether or not that amount is showing up, because you can review all of your transactions in one place. Okay. And if something drops off, you'd be able to see it. And you can set up those custom reports to look just at that account that your journal entry should be hitting. And if it's 0, then it'll flag it. Or if it is less than 1,000, it'll flag it. So then it would be catching those things. So you just have to customize it to look for the accounts that journal entry should be going to.
You couldn't set up, like, if the journal entry name was depreciation entry, you couldn't set up to look for depreciation entry this month, and if it's missing to flag it. Like just a description called that. You could not set it up for that specific, right?
I don't know if it has description. I don't know if it has description, but you can definitely look in the account that it's going to.
Okay, but you couldn't have it flag you if, like, every month we've had a journal entry called depreciation, and then November comes and that one entry wasn't popping up under that description.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it's looking that closely at the detail section. Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready to go on next?
So this report is unusual account entries. It was something that it is another smart learning thing. It's looking for accounts that don't normally get used. Equity accounts should normally not have a lot of activity. So if there's something going into that account, it would pull it up here and flag it. So it's pretty nifty how it smart analyzes these reports. And then I just did an example of how if there is something that the bookkeeper would say that they need the senior to review, that's where that red query sign off, that's what that looks like when you sign off with a query. So it makes it show up as red, so it brings it to my attention. Okay.
We do have a question about report. So what reports can you pull? And does the system give a report where we can see everything that's been flagged, cleared, and who did it, like an audit trail of some sort?
Yeah. So there's on the review of this page, the menu button there, when you click that, you can see finalization history, and then you can see who signed off on which month, and then you can go into that month and see any notes that they made or any flags that they pinned.
Okay.
So that's kind of like an audit trail of seeing who signed off on which month. And then you can also export any of these reports to Excel and like see all of the detail there as well.
Okay, great.
Okay. So this one is the entries trend analysis. So this is, I mean, this is kind of where you would like catch if a journal entry wasn't made or something like that. So for instance, in this one, I caught that this insurance company normally had a journal entry and then occasionally a bill. So supposedly that would make me think prepaid expense. So normally they have one prepaid expense journal entry a month, and if I were to click into those numbers, I could pull up the transaction that it's referring to and see the detail of what is hitting those accounts. But then it drops off in January, but we had 2 bills for them in December. So that would tell me that I should have looked at the bills, put them to prepaid, and then started a new prepaid journal entry in 2022. So just an example of how I might analyze this report. Going on. And then this one is just for account balance checks. This is very customizable. You can select the accounts that should normally be a positive balance or a negative balance. And if it is a negative balance, then it's saying, hey, this is abnormal. You need to review this account more in depth. So pretty straightforward. Then on the threshold limit section, that you can specify. So for example, if benefits is over $10,000, then we've got a problem. It should be less than 10,000. So that means we need to accrue or whatever. But you can
balance sheet and income statement as well.
Yep, you can set this for any accounts, for any amounts, for any conditions at all. Go ahead.
Okay, 2 questions. One is if I have a month-end checklist and I want to see any particular entries that haven't been made, and I think you sort of answered this in a previous one, is there a way to do that?
In a sense, yeah, you'd have to set up one of these reports to look for the accounts that those entries should be going to.
So sort of an account by account view. Okay. And then the other one is a little bit long, but basically it says, is there a way to have it tell you in QuickBooks if there's not a receipt attached to transactions?
Oh, I don't know about the receipts. I know with the new QuickBooks integration feature, you can quickly view the receipts if there's one attached to it, and it will like show a little icon next to the transaction. Okay. So if you're reviewing like a whole list of transactions, you can see the ones that are missing it with the little icon, and then click on it and it'll show you.
Yeah, that sounds like it would do it. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the review, the big 10,000 foot review picture that I was kind of referring to earlier. So this is where we can see all of our expenses. It's by vendor right now, but you can sort this, you can group this however you want. So going by vendor, and then it is looking for any GL misclassification. So meaning this vendor should always be coded to bank service charges, but then it started being coded to B of A fees. Which one should it be going to? And it's going to flag that. It's looking for amount inconsistencies. So if we have $58 every month and then it jumps up to $500, that's an inconsistency that it would flag. And then if there's any entries missing, so like we had $58 and then no expense in January, then it would flag that as well. So on this is the like header screen where you can just review all of them at one place. Then if you click into each one of those, you can see the GL misclassifications, the inconsistencies, or the missing entries one by one, and it'll show you just those transactions that it's flagging. So this is like where I catch most of the discrepancies that I'm interested in when I'm reviewing the P&L. So like when I review in QuickBooks, I pull up a P&L by month and just show like the last 3 or 4 months, and I'm trying to look for trends in my amounts and something that might be off. But in this view, I can actually see it by vendor and then see the accounts that it should be going to right there. So it's just a complementary view, and it gives you a different viewpoint than you would get in QuickBooks just reviewing a P&L.
And
But
Alyssa, I assume that you could correct it here. If you saw something that was, if the Bank of America fees was incorrect, you could correct it right here.
Yep, you can click right into the amount. Any of these amounts are clickable, click-intoable. You click into it, it'll pull up those transactions that make up that amount, and then you can automatically edit right there in Autoreview, and it'll push the changes over into QuickBooks, hit sync, and it'll resync, and your report will be showing the updated amounts.
Okay, that looks great. That sounds great.
Yeah, so as you can see, there are some transactions that are flagged here. I think the next screen has more detailed. Yeah, so here's another example. Like the Global Health Council should have had $50 for business development, but then it looks like that got refunded in the next month, but it got refunded into the wrong account, into a different account, and we don't want that. We'd want that to be going to the same account or put on the balance sheet so that we can just wash it out. So that's just something that was a quick flag. And then if you go on to the next one as well, it shows if you click directly into those individual the flags. This one is showing me an amount inconsistency. It was $152 exactly every month for the last 4 months, and then in January it went way up, almost doubled, and then in February it dropped back down. So that would it's flagging it to say, hey, this amount was not what it was supposed to be, or what it was historically, I guess. And you could see if there was something coded wrong, or if it should be accrued or anything like that. So then this is the custom report views. Summit, we have almost all of our clients automatically set up with at least the office expense and capitalization checks. So we're looking for transactions that are hitting the fixed asset account that are less than 2,500, because those should really be expensed. Then the other report right above this one, office expense over 2,500, if it's hitting the P&L, but it's over 2,500, then we would want to capitalize that. So it's looking for those things, and you can customize this to a different amount, a different account. We just have all of our clients set up this way because that's our standard practice, but if a client wants to capitalize anything over 1,000, then you can use 1,000. So it's really easy to set up, and Autoreview, their support team, is really helpful for us in getting our clients set up automatically with these reports ready to go. So we just send in a list of which clients we want them to set up for us, and they'll set it up and have these reports saved and ready to go. Because that's just our firm standardization, but you can enlist their help to help set up any of these custom reports that you want, or you can do it yourself. That's easy. It's super easy to set them up yourself too.
And you said this is at an account level. I've got a client that for their computers, they capitalize over 5,000, but everything else is 2,500. So they could look at like computer expense, the same thing, say, is it hitting the P&L for less than 5,000, and did it hit the asset class for more than 5,000 or less than 5,000?
Yes, exactly. Okay. It's by account. You can select as many or as few accounts as you want this to look at.
Okay.
And then it's also got a report section, which is your generic P&L, balance sheet, AP/AR, aging. You can just see them all in one place without having to switch to QuickBooks if you wanted to include that in your review. And then it's also got this undeposited funds review, which I have found super helpful for a lot of my clients. I know QuickBooks, you can find the undeposited transactions, but this is by date. So if you want to see undeposited transactions as of February 28th, or as of today, you can change that date and be able to see the transactions that were not yet deposited and see whether or not they were deposited in the future. So as an example, by month-end close, there were 2 transactions, 2 sales receipts that hadn't been deposited yet, but then you can see the deposit date was 3/1. So I'm okay with those because I know they were deposited next day. So if I have a huge balance sitting in undeposited funds at the end of the month and my CFO says, hey, what is this? That shouldn't be there. And I can easily jump to here and say, oh, that's okay. It cleared the next day. It's just a timing thing. It's fine. It should actually be there. So yeah,
Okay, good.
cool little report
Let me
there.
jump to this for a second, and if you're okay, then I'll go ahead and launch the last polling question while you go through it.
Yeah, totally. This one is super cool. I just learned about this week because they rolled out new features this week. So Autoreview now has a Chrome extension, and if you install that extension, it will have a little button in your QuickBooks page when you're in QuickBooks that automatically has a drop down that shows you anything that it's flagging as like a potential issue, anything that would show up on these reports, all the reports that I just went through. It'll automatically show you a list of those transactions in QuickBooks so that you can make real-time adjustments. And this is going to be super helpful for my bookkeepers, particularly because when they're working on coding, it's going to automatically flag to them things that they should catch or that they may have coded incorrectly, and they can make a real-time change so that they don't have to go back and change it a month later when they're actually reviewing it. So this will really make a big difference in the month-end close because we're catching it before the month ends. So I am really excited about that. I haven't had much time to like dig into it yet because they just rolled it out this week, but I think it's going to be really beneficial. We're going to have all of our bookkeepers install that in their Chrome pages.
Okay. Give about 10 seconds and then I'm going to close down the polling question. So if you haven't answered, choose your answer quickly. Yeah, we did have a question actually about the Chrome extension that was in there. Okay, go ahead and close the polling question. Okay, people should now be able to see. So the polling question is interesting. The question was sort of, what do you see as the barriers? And almost 2/3 of people said they thought it was too much time to implement. Any thoughts on kind of what implementation takes and if that's a valid barrier?
I spent about 20 minutes, and I just went through this with a lot of my new clients. I spent about 20 to 30 minutes going through each client, and this is a brand new client to Autoreview, pulling them in Autoreview, going through a review of like the prior year end just to make sure last year was clean, and then going into this year. And it was about 30 minutes to go through each report, configure it how I want so that I'm not seeing, so that, you know, my bookkeeper's not seeing a bunch of journal entries that they don't need to look at. I know those are okay. I can configure it to clear those out and then have all the reports set up and ready to go. So, I mean, it's not a long time. And the more you use it, the faster you'll get, and then you can hand it straight off to your bookkeeper. Then they should be handling the bulk of the review process. So that's our goal, is to get them comfortable enough to be making their own changes. And so, yeah, I didn't spend very much time configuring it and getting it set up. And then you also have the Autoreview support team who can set up some initial configurations for everything that you know. Like, all of my clients are going to have this threshold, these accounts are the uncategorized and all that. They can set that up for you, so then it's even less time.
Okay. I think what we've seen there as well is a lot of it depends on experience. You know, if you have, let's say you have 5 clients, only one is in QBO, so you only have this set up for one client, and then you get a new QBO client, you're setting it up for client number 2. It's going to take a little bit longer to get that client set up. But once you get several of them going and you have, you know, moving from client 4 to 5, it definitely gets quicker. And I would say, you know, the initial setup is probably just getting familiar with it. You know, like you can tell Alyssa uses this every month. She's in there all the time. She knows what to look for. She's smart learned as well of like, okay, I used to check this report. I used to have this report checked off as something I wanted to check, but honestly, I never gained anything from it. So I'm not going to use that report anymore. I'm going to mark it off, and I'm going to use this report instead. So I think that's the a lot of what the learning curve comes in. But the way we look at it at Summit is I'd rather spend a little bit of time up front and get this process set up, and then spend less time in the future months. So I think that's really the way we look at it.
Yeah, and I just spent that 5th extra bonus week of the month that we had. When you have that extra time, that downtime, to just get them all set up at once, batch it out, and then you are really familiar with exactly what you need to be set up, and it makes it pretty quick process once you know what you're doing.
And I can say from experience of working with Alyssa a lot, I can tell Alyssa uses this a lot because I have no problem quizzing Alyssa in the middle of a client meeting. Like if I'm seeing something while looking at the financial statements, and I'm like, Alyssa, what happened this month in this account? She knows the answer right away because I can tell she's using this, and she's always really quick on it, where some of our accountants don't use this as much, and I would never ask that question live in a meeting because I wouldn't know what kind of answer I would get. Like I think that having this in your back pocket, like I trust Alyssa a lot that she's understanding the high level because she has this being done each month.
Yeah.
Alyssa, I think you've already answered this question, but someone's asking, are you using software exclusively for reviews or using it in conjunction with other work papers each month?
So it depends on the client. Like some clients need an extra special work paper that that this can't handle. Just one off review of something specific. But for the most part, I'm using this in conjunction with just my weekly, cash flow. If I'm doing cash flow for them, that's kind of its own review of what happened in the past week, that kind of thing. But yeah, pretty much just this, and then a once over of the P&L and balance sheet, just to make sure that everything's in line.
It doesn't replace GL reconciliations, right? Like you still need to do like a prepaid reconciliation and AR reconciliation. You need to do your standard reconciliations. Like this does not replace that. But that's pretty standard accounting stuff that you should be doing for all your accounts. But this is just almost. I look at it as like
you can't just run this and say my month is
right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I would do all your bank recs first, and then come into this as your secondary, like, catch all of anything that you might have missed during your bank recs, or any other reviews that you do.
Sure. If I come back to your answer about how long it took, if someone had said a barrier is time, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. If someone said the barrier is time and you said how long it takes you, should they be thinking, yeah, but you've done it forever, so it's fast for you? For someone setting up the first time, is your estimates in the ballpark about how long it should take?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, maybe for your first one, give it like an hour. And then each one after that will get faster, and an hour to play around with it maybe and learn for yourself. But it's very, very straightforward. Like the reports tell you exactly what you're looking for in that report, and there's a info button on each report that gives a little brief explanation of how you should be using it. And then there's another button that can take you to the support help page that has like a whole video walkthrough of that report and full out explanation that Autoreview did of all the help pages. So
that's another reason we selected it. Is, I mean, you saw these screens, and I know they weren't interactive, but it really is user friendly. I mean, everything's hyperlinked, and it takes you to exactly what you need to do. You can make the changes while you're within the tool. You don't have to go back to QuickBooks and okay, what's the transaction number? I have to look it up. Like everything is very user friendly. And then on this slide that we're showing right here, we also because they have so much user support, they're constantly changing. They have a really good process where they're always thinking about, okay, I've had that same question asked, like let's go back to the journal entry checklist question. That question gets asked 3 or 4 times. They're okay, that's something we need to add in here, and they're always updating and adding new reports and new reviews because they really do listen to their customers.
Alyssa, I think you answered this already. So we have a question that says, can you set up default criteria and then implement it across all of your clients? And didn't you say that they even help, that Autoreview helps you do some of the setup like that?
Yes, so they helped us implement things across clients that we wanted configured, like in the initial setup of our clients. So if you send them that list and say this is how I want all my clients to be set, they can do that for you. Otherwise, it's on a client by client basis, but then once you set it once, going forward, it will always be set that way. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And I think this might be the last one I'll ask you. Okay, just confirming, this system will provide a separate review for each company being handled, even if they have varied lines of businesses. Sounds like you would be specific about this account. Here's what I want this to be, because it's different than maybe some of the other accounts. Would that be the way to think about it?
Yep, exactly. So it's client specific. So you can see your list of all your clients, but then when you go into the actual review, you're going into one client at a time. So it's for that client, you can configure it, everything specifically for them. So even if they're a different industry type, you can set it up however they need it for that client.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then
thank you, guys. Yo, go ahead.
No, I was just going to comment on the other items on the new features that I had listed there. They're also going to be coming out soon with, like, in code, while you're coding a transaction, it'll pop up with suggested things of like what was previously used for that vendor, that kind of thing, which QBO is getting better about that. They have a few features that do that, but not like in the transaction level. You can see historical things, like when you hover your mouse over the flag, for instance, that flag there, this feature is already out. It'll tell you that what they think is wrong, and then you can see, and then for the P&L review data feature that's coming soon, it'll be the same kind of thing. You hover your mouse over a transaction, and it'll show you historical averages, historical trends, all sorts of data that for that account, for that vendor, that all of that kind of stuff. That's going to be pretty cool. So that's coming soon.
That sounds great. That's cool. Okay, anything else on new features?
Nope, that's it. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you for walking through this in detail. I think that hopefully the screen slides, I know for me, really showed people sort of here's how you could actually use it. Good examples of what you did, kind of what was coming or what is coming for this. And then Jamie, thanks for the initial framing around how we thought of this and the ways that it could be beneficial to us. We're hoping people want to keep learning. And so we have the Modern CPA Success Show, and you can see the YouTube channel where you can get that. This is a podcast that Jamie hosts, and we have employees, we have clients, we have other firms that are on here sharing all sorts of information for people. So we hope people will take advantage of that. Also, we'd like people to get connected. We have a Slack community called the CFO community. A lot of different firms are in here sharing information. We've also got some live activities going on that we share with people with a weekly chat and a marketing channel and things like that. But it's a pretty active channel where people ask questions and share information here. So we hope people will consider joining this. We do have a promotion code that gives you 1 month free access. I mentioned at the beginning, I provide virtual CFO services, as does our entire firm. If this is of interest to you, we have a pretty intensive course called the Virtual CFO Playbook, how to land $60,000 per year clients. As I mentioned, intensive. There are 15 different modules that really go through everything that we do with Summit CPA Group and show people how to do that. As you do that, you get a free 1-hour coaching session with a couple people within the firm. There is a weekly meeting, the virtual CFO firm in the cloud ebook is included in that. You get the CFO Slack community I mentioned, and then the weekly is fireside chats that we do on Tuesday, so people can talk about how their experience is going, try and deliver those, and just ask real-time questions of people. So one people should definitely check out. Discounts on software tools are also available. Like many people, so if what we talked about today, or as I described, sort of CFO services and things like that, if that sounds like it's interesting to you and you'd like to join us, please check us out because we are hiring Summit CPA Group. Jamie and Alyssa, thank you very much. We hope everyone has a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.